It's been 1 week since the last episode. Here's Stephen Page of Barenaked Ladies.
This is Anyone Can Play Guitar, the podcast for musicians and music lovers that takes you behind the scenes of the music industry.
This week is brought to you in partnership with guitar rigs from MGR Music. Ever wondered what equipment your favourite guitarists use? Head over to mgrmusic.com/guitar rigs now with detailed pedal diagrams, amplifier and guitar combinations that defined an era. Whether it's Kurt Cobain's 1991 setup or Alex Turner's from 2006, mgrmusic.com/guitar rigs is the place to go.
Hello and welcome to episode 80, James. 80 with me, Ben, and him.
James,
you saw that.
You're really pleased with yourself.
But you saw that a million miles away.
Fair play. It was alright actually.
Before we get an interview with Stephen, here is a little snippet from last week's episode with Keith Armstrong of Kitchenware Records.
Like I say, we're sort of bringing in other kids that have done music business courses. I just have an interest in music.
Yeah.
I'm just keen to get started and haven't got a clue where to start.
Yeah.
And trying to help give them a bit of our experience and all the rest of it.
So James, Stephen Page, formerly of Barenaked Ladies.
This was another one that you were positively
the
buzzing about.
Engineering I did to get this interview. As you know, I am a massive Barenaked Ladies fan, and Stephen was in the Barenaked Ladies from founding. He was a founding member 1988 until around about 2009, 2008, when he left the band to pursue other things. The band continued, but Stephen's now a solo artist. He has a trio which we talk about, and we talk about really his writing partner, production partner, Craig, and how important it is to have those people in your life as a musician or in the music industry as whatever, to basically get your career further or just get the best art out of you. And that is really important.
From the moment you said trio, I just started trio.
You are wandering all over the place in the...
That's just what was in my head.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Thought I'd share that.
Definitely. So, like I say, I caught up with Stephen in Bristol on the first or second night of his solo tour, first solo tour in quite a while in the UK. He did a mini one a couple of nights, but this was a full-on tour. And we talk about how he just turned up in London one day and thought, I'm going to see if anyone wants to turn up and play some songs with us. And the whole thing escalated from there. I'm going to stop now, James, because I get excited when I talked about Stephen Page and the Barenaked Ladies.
We don't want too long an intro, and people probably want to hear from him.
Yeah.
Thank you to Stephen himself. Thank you to Liam, who set all this up. Thank you to Terry, Stephen's manager, and Dino, Stephen's tour manager.
So here he is, James.
Remember, a great way to support the show is to go on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and give us a rating and a review. It really does make a massive difference for the show. Now, on with the episode.
So, welcome to the podcast, Stephen Page.
Nice
How
to
are
meet
you
you.
today on the second day of the tour, UK tour?
Still feeling fresh, thankfully.
Good.
2 days in. So
Yeah.
talk to me in a week and we'll see.
I was going to say, how long is the tour?
Well, the UK tour is just about 2 weeks.
Cool.
But it's I've been going straight since I was here last October.
I was going to say you were here not that long ago.
Yeah.
So when I was speaking to Liam, he said that you're back over. I was like, that was quick. That's not a bad thing.
No, it's a funny thing because it had been 9 years since I was here last. Last time I was here was with the Barenaked Ladies in 2007. So whatever, 10 years or so. And then a couple of years ago, I came over on holiday with my family and just put a thing out on Twitter saying if I showed up at Regent's Park at 1 o'clock on Saturday, would anybody bring a guitar and would everybody come to this impromptu show? And like 100 people came, and it was fantastic. So I realized then people actually did want me to come back and do some shows. So we did kind of a tester in the fall, and it went so well that we booked as soon as we could.
That's cool.
Come back.
So one of the things I was going to talk about was, you kind of touched on it there.
So as you know, and people that will know, who's listening, you were part of Barenaked Ladies. For the record, my favourite band. So branching out on your own, you've said it took you a while to come back into the fold, touring at least across here, and it was that little drop in the Regent Park. How has it changed in those times? Like how, like for yourself as an artist, but also, I'm guessing touring's changed. It looks different the way the music is now.
Sure. I mean, I haven't stopped performing live, but it's that's the amazing thing too. Is it's pretty easy to be invisible and still busy all the time. That if you're not scouring the internet all the time for what's Stephen Page up to at this moment, because essentially you use social media to promote the events that you need to promote, and then other ones like ones that sell out right away, or you're doing a lot of one-offs that kind of comes and goes and disappears off the radar very quickly. Like they drop off people's memory even. So, and what I've been doing a lot of is 4 shows here and 5 shows there, and filling up a month that way, but with 3 days home in between, which makes touring a lot easier. But also touring as a solo artist, I could put together whatever package I want, whatever kind of the show demands. So if it needs a full 6-piece rock band, I can do that with horn section, or I can do it, a trio like I've brought over here, or solo acoustic, any of those things. So it means, for me, I try to tour as lean as possible.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's just more work. I mean, it is, without a big, coach to sleep in or any of those kinds of things, you don't have the expenses of that, but you also don't have the luxury of that, or paying a large crew to advance set everything up for you, where rather, we tend to kind of come in and do that ourselves. Yeah. Bring 1 or 2 crew members and that's it.
And do you like that? Does it feel like going back to 88, 89, round Speakers Corner, that sort of Amen Corner, that sort of thing?
I'm not super sentimental about the early days, like sleeping on people's floors and stuff. It was like we did what we had to do. But I hate the idea of what we did in the early days was you're investing in your career. We used to joke that we would get just as far driving down the highway in America on a tour bus with a suitcase full of money open on the roof and just letting it blow out there like it was the same thing. But we knew we were investing in a career. When you're at a point in your life where you have a career and you want to take advantage of it, you want to be able to actually make it work for you, and you have a family to support. When I was 21, I didn't have kids to put through university and that kind of thing. I realize anything that kind of could be a luxury or extra expense, you try to trim back, and also realize like I lived a very pampered life and I don't have to. It's not that hard to do a little bit of extra work and tune your own guitars, change your own guitar strings. Yeah. But when I first started as a solo artist, I was like looking at my stuff thinking like, I know there was a time I used to do this, but I don't know when the last time I changed my own guitar strings was. They're weird things. You're kind of ashamed of yourself for not being able to take care of yourself as well.
Yeah, I suppose on the other side, during that, I would say, Gordon to whenever period, people can be pulling you every different direction, so you probably will forget how to tune a guitar or string a guitar.
That was why, we had an amazing road crew, and actually a lot of those guys are still with Barenaked Ladies now. Incredibly dedicated group of guys, and that's it. Like if you've got to run off and do 3 different radio visits and whatever else, you don't have time to do that kind of stuff when you need to come back, do a sound check, do a meet and greet, do a gig, when you actually get the time to keep track of all your instruments and set it all up and everything. Yeah.
Still sounds like you're excited by the whole thing though.
Oh yeah, I love it. This is great. It's a great job.
So that leads on nicely to the new album. Is that out in September?
September 14th.
Yeah. So writing now for your own material, which you've written for a long time, but if we concentrate now, has that process changed? Do you write by yourself? Do you write with a collaborator? How does that work?
It can be any or all of those things. Okay. A lot of the stuff I've written over the last few records have been with Craig Northey, who's playing with me in the trio. This record, I think, only has a couple co-writes. Most of it is myself. Mm-hmm. And the biggest difference is you're just not thinking about, like when you're writing, at least in my experience, when I was writing for BNL, I was thinking about what everybody else could bring to the songs, and thinking about that that moment when you play a new song for your band and you're kind of auditioning this thing you've worked hard at separately for your colleagues and your friends, and they have veto power usually too, or they can really change a song, usually for the better, but sometimes take it to a place you didn't expect, and it can either be exciting or disappointing. And when you're doing it yourself, you kind of have the ability to keep chipping away until you could hear that thing that you've been hearing in your head,
right?
Which is can be frustrating too, but ultimately to get to that goal is really satisfying.
Yeah, that's good, because when we were in the band, you're right about the auditioning part. It's quite, even though you've been playing together for years, it's still quite daunting. So what I would do is I'd pretend I was tuning my guitar and just like play a riff and see if anyone noticed I was playing it. And if they liked it, go, yeah, I've had this for months. So you mentioned that chipping away to try and hear what you could hear in your head, which is an impossible task half the time. How do you know when to go, right, this is not working? Whatever I thought this was, it's either not very good, or I'm not feeling it, or I want to park it. How ruthless are you with that?
Oh, I'm really ruthless with it. Although sometimes if some idea sticks around for a long period of time, I feel like that there was probably some value in it. I just maybe wasn't seeing it from the right angle. I'm thinking it was something that it wasn't. And sometimes you think of a song as being some kind of it's an opportunity to say something politically or about yourself or something like that, and sometimes it's like that's not what that's for. Melodic ideas will show up in multiple songs sometimes as I'm kind of working through different ideas, and sometimes only one makes the cut.
Okay. So how long does the whole process take then? So from either a song or an album, how do you give yourself any time frames? You try to really be strict?
I need deadlines in order to get stuff done. Although I thought this record was going to be done in time for this tour. That was the plan initially. But when I finally had the time to finish it off, I had been chipping away at it for several years, and since even before the last one came out. But this was an opportunity to kind of refine those ideas or finish off the last bunch of songs. And I realized it was like there were songs that I thought no longer fit, or I was kind of sick of. I didn't feel attached to them anymore, which is the bad part of sitting on songs. Sometimes it's best to just get them out there and keep moving.
I suppose they're not for you, are they?
Right. And then there were other songs that just in the spring this year, I realized I had a bunch of other stuff that was coming out, and I wanted to include that on the record, make it feel more contemporary to where I'm at too. Okay. So some of those songs came out shockingly quickly. Like usually, there's a range. There's some where I've had the idea for a song for several years and just haven't been able to make it hang together. And then other ones come out in the course of a day.
Right. So a lot of people have said similar things. There's just no rules to it, which I think is why people love it. Let's be honest.
Well, it's the chase, the elusive. I mean, Leonard Cohen's famous quote. He said, "If I knew where songs came from, I'd go there more often."
It's pretty good. I've never heard that before.
This week is brought to you in partnership with MGR Music. Ever wanted to learn an instrument, hone your skills, or pick up something completely new? You can get so far by yourself. However, professional guidance can make all the difference. With a network of tutors right across the UK and rates starting from as little as £15 per hour, visit mgrmusic.com now to get started. It's half time and it's the regular good cause slot. Here's Stephen.
Well, my mother's really involved with the group. It's called the Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign, but it's run by the Stephen Lewis Foundation. Okay. Stephen Lewis was the UN envoy for AIDS in Africa for years, and he runs his own NGO in which every dollar they raise goes directly to the villages to build schools and that kind of thing. But essentially, what they realized in sub-Saharan Africa is they've lost the better part of a generation. So there are grandmothers raising children all over again, as they've lost the children in between. And my mother, being a grandmother herself, has worked very closely with them and has gone to Africa a bunch of times now to connect with these other grandmothers, and we're doing this amazing work. So the money they raise, actually does support these families. It's pretty cool work that these women who've already lived full lives then jump back in and are really hands-on. So it's worth checking out.
If you'd like to find out more, website is grandmotherscampaign.org. Now, on with the episode.
Still talking about the new album and the new recording or new writing, is there anyone that you bounce the songs off? So if you've got a demo or just even the noodles of a song, have you got that person to take to say, like, tell me exactly what you think?
Oh yeah, Craig Northey, who is my producing partner on this record, but tours with me all the time. He's got his own gig and his own band, The Odds, that he plays with, but he's for a long time been my sounding board. He's he can be the most positive person I know, which is a great thing, but he can also say, if he has a criticism of the song, it makes me have to come up with an appropriate argument as to why I have so much stuff on there or whatever. And if I can't come up with an appropriate argument, then I realize he's right. And I do respect his opinion. You need to have those kind of people.
You have to, yeah, definitely.
And the other thing is, as much as I enjoy it, I do most of the recording myself. Yeah. And I like mixing, I like the whole process. But I always send stuff off to somebody else to mix. Because to me, just to have another set of ears is really important. And on some mixes, I can be very particular about what it is I want this to sound like. And other times, I'm just kind of like, just put it up and follow things that you think are appropriate, and occasionally I'll go back with notes saying there was a guitar lick there that needs to be turned up, or those kinds of things.
Yeah, that is I found that a strange process. We had a friend who was willing to take that off our hands, and then going through and going, I need to listen to this with the object of put my guitars louder because I'm better than everyone else, because I wasn't.
Right. Well, in a band you have that thing too. You have this sense of like, part of you wants to step forward and you have the spotlight shone on your part. And sometimes it's just like a matter of you just want to be heard. Like you just want to be like, you want what you're doing to be heard.
That riff or something. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I played that part for a reason. And sometimes, like I remember the first time that Bob Clearmountain mixed a Barenaked Ladies record, it was the first time that I could hear my guitar loud and clear, and my playing had gotten better. I was never a particularly great player back in the old days, and that dynamic becomes part of the band dynamic. Like, you're the good guitar player, you're the not good guitar player. Like, that's what people started to think. But he didn't know who was who. He just put the parts up and went, this part needs to be louder here, this part needs to be louder here. And it was like astonishing for me to hear myself in context of the band mix without any of the politics of who's supposed to be louder or quieter or brighter or darker or whatever else. They just did what served the song in the mix.
So for any Barenaked Ladies fans listening, can you remember what song it was?
It was probably something like, I don't know, it would have been on Barenaked Ladies or Me. So I'm trying to think what song it would have been, like something like even Adrift or something like that.
Oh, okay, cool. So that leads us in nicely to one of the final things I want to speak about, just conscious of time. It's like longevity. So we spoke a few times how you've been going since '88. And in there you've got all the albums with the ladies, all the albums with yourself, still maintaining a level of success. I mean, you only got to look at the Juno Awards to notice that people still want to hear
your
voice.
Nice thing.
So two things really. How does that whole thing feel? Like, still coming to the Fleece in Bristol here, and still people still turning up after 30 years.
Right.
30 years.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been a solo artist for almost 10 years now, so you have to kind of, you learn some humility over the course of that, and you have to take some beatings and also feel some successes, but it's allowed me to be able to look back at the whole 30 years and be really grateful for what I've been able to experience, but the fact that people still keep coming back, and that those old songs mean something to them, and I want to respect that and honor that. At the same time, people seem to be really shockingly open to hearing new material. People I've been around a while, always joke, well, here's a new song, which is the stuff you came for, right? And quite often that's not, when you see a band who've been around that long and they refuse to play their hits, it seems like a weird, a weird choice, arrogant or whatever is how it comes off, or that they just aren't in touch with why the audience is there.
Yeah.
Or they are in touch with it and they're angry at it. Where in this case, I get it. I totally love the fact people love to hear that stuff, but people seem weirdly open to hearing new material. It's like catching up with an old friend. They want to hear where you're at now too.
I would totally agree. I think it's also, what they've done before, and they can, wherever the Leonard Cohen said their songs come from,
right.
They're going to get another one at some point, whether it's even a chorus.
Right.
So yeah. So again, with longevity, and James, who normally does the podcast with us, he's always about the business side of it. How has the business changed?
In a lot of ways, it's a completely different business. But it's also different for me because I'm now kind of an artist of another era. I'm still making music. I'm still putting stuff out there.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm aiming for the top 40 that I would have been 20 years ago. So you're competing at a different level because there's the element of nostalgia, but then there's also the element of a more mature artist who's still making music that people want to hear. So there's different channels you have to hit that way. When it comes to things like social media, I like it when people share information and share their passions. That reminds me of the old days, was literally word of mouth. But I have a hard time engaging on social media myself. Part of me resents the fact that it's part of my job now. Or that people feel that they're owed some kind of constant personal contact, because it's hard enough for me to stay in contact with my family. I'm away a lot. And it's I don't want to fake it and make it seem like I'm everybody's friend. I watch other musicians who are really good at it. It's not like they're phony. They have a real knack for being able to be inclusive that way on that kind of thing. And I also don't like feeling if something doesn't, a gig doesn't sell, that somehow it's well, you didn't tweet about it enough or the right way or whatever. And it just seems like that shouldn't be the only, it's an easy fallback for everybody else in the business, if it's a promoter or a record company or management or whatever else. If they can find a way to blame the artist, they will. But at the end of the day, it is the artist's name up there, and it's the artist that the promoter's taking the risk on.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, two last things. I already mentioned the Junos. I just wanted to bring it up because I watched it on my phone at about 3 a.m. because my daughter was about 3 months or so, and you go through a period of
where they're up all the time.
And I think I tweeted no, you're the one that's crying, not me. Because it was as a fan of yourself and the other four, it was a lovely moment. So for you, was it just a lovely experience? I remember seeing your kids in the audience crying. I'm going, they're crying, it's alright.
Exactly. Well, that was a nice moment for me. My kids could come out. The other guys' kids could come out. And that was the most interesting thing about seeing those guys again after 9 years, was watching. I was so looking forward to seeing how their kids had grown up.
Yeah. And
I got to, meet kids who hadn't even been born yet when I left the band. And, how proud of us all our kids are, and how connected they feel to the music. That was probably the heaviest thing, and also the lightest, most buoyant moment. But for, musically, it was super easy. Just picking up the guitar and
singing. You miss a beat.
Yeah, you really don't miss a beat. And that was really lovely. It's just nice to know that people have fond memories of what we did together too.
Yeah, wonderful. Stephen Page, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Excellent.
Right, so how long can you now talk about that?
I'm not going to, James. I'm just going to say it was a
Excellent.
delight, an excellent experience. I have a lot of emotional attachment to Stephen's music, as you are fully aware, and people listening probably have gathered. But also from that, similar to the Jimmy Atkins episode, he really was measured in his answers. He really thought them through. And I think that's really important when trying to get the best out of our guests, to try and get their nuggets of experience and their viewpoint on the world, really. And it's quite interesting. If you want another snippet of Stephen, there's an episode of Reply All, a really good podcast, where he talks about the music industry in the late 90s, just finding bands and testing, like as in market testing songs. Really interesting. It's a great episode as well. So well worth a listen. Next week, James,
What we got?
we're getting to the penultimate episode, or the penultimate guest at least. And we have John Newman.
Girls are always interested, and it's a bit like that in hits. Like,
All right,
now
yeah.
I'm like, I don't want a hit. I'm not bothered. Like, I'm not bothered. I've got my missus, and I love her to bits, and I've got my family, and I've got my health, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I've started appreciating that in an older age.
All of the show notes for today's episode can be found at acpgmusic.com, along with our back catalogue of episodes. If you like what you hear, or perhaps have some improvements or specific guests you'd like us to consider, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at info@acpgmusic.com or hit us up on social media. Keep supporting upcoming artists, and we'll catch you next time.